All right. Okay, it doesn't matter if I mute you because there's only you and I. So, but I'm going to stick the microphone in anyway. You see enough there, cool. We're also going to do a double pigeon right at the very end. So I've got a couple of cushions if you want to grab something off the couch, but it's entirely up to you. Or a rolled up blanket is quite nice as well. But that comes right at the very end. So cool. Okay, making a start at the front edge of your mat. I would have the feet hip distance apart or maybe just a little bit wider. So just take a moment to kind of find your grounding, lift your toes, spread them wide, feel the pressure distribute evenly all the way across the foot, and then let the arms hang long. So it's going to be a mountain pose start. Snuggle the elbows in towards the body, turn your palms to face forward, and you are welcome to close your eyes. In fact, I'll invite you to close your eyes. So we're going to work doing a little toe to top scan and then up and over the top and down the back. And while we do this, we're just going to land here in this position, and it's going to be fairly firm through the body. With the eyes closed, you might notice that you sort of rock a little bit, sway side to side. That's okay. Just let your body find its own balance. So starting at the feet, we're going to think about the whole of the front body as a lifting process. So maybe for a moment you peel the toes up off the mat, spread them wide, and then land them one at a time, taking up as much space on the mat as you possibly can. So you've had the lift up of the toes, drawing our way up the legs. Think of a lift up of the kneecaps, and you'll do that by engaging your thighs. So a little bit of a squeeze of the quadricep muscles, not enough that they're tense, just firm, so that you don't have the temptation of pushing back on the knee joint. Working up the body a little bit more with the belly button, we're going to draw it in and up. So you might just notice yourself grow a centimetre taller as you do that. We're going to lift the sternum without flaring the ribs, so try not to sink into the lower back and arch the back, but the sternum can lift, so again you might notice you're a centimetre taller. And then we're going to think about the collarbone lifting, rising, maybe the chin is a little bit elevated. And the very top of our mountain pose, the crown of the head also lifted. And then by contrast, as we travel down the back of the body, the shoulders are drawn back and down. The elbows are a little bit lowered. Maybe there's a bit of weight through the fingertips. You feel them drawing a little bit further down the thighs. And the tailbone is just going to be gently tucked and drawing towards the ground. And then with that firmness still continuing through the back of the body, the weight is heavy all the way down to the heels. And the longer you hold here, you might start to just notice a little bit of tiredness, a little bit of fatigue, because the body is firm. Mountain pose, although simple, still has a lot of muscle activation going on. Tuning in towards your breathing, you'll notice the chest rise and fall. The inhale and the exhale both through the nose. And we're going to keep the breathing as natural and as rhythmical throughout the class as we can. Checking in particularly through the stronger poses where you might just notice the temptation to hold your breath, where the concentration comes a little bit deep. So we'll check in and just make sure that the breathing is still soft throughout. Bring a little bit more softness into your knees now. Maybe the thighs relax a little bit. Give the arms a little shake, rotate them in their arm sockets. And I'm going to encourage you to swing side to side. So like the swings at a fun fair, the ones that are on the edge of the long chain. You can build momentum, make this a little bit bigger, let the shoulders move, all the while the feet keeping you grounded and firm into your mat. The hips can take a little bit of movement as the knees bend. Good, lovely. Now that the arms are a little bit more relaxed, we'll come back to center. Give the shoulders a couple of rolls, backwards and forwards. Again, shake the arms by their sides. And as you find your foundations again, so firm up through the middle, feel the lift through the front of the body, the grounding through the back. We're going to breathe in and lift the fingertips up towards the sky. And then take a gentle bend side to side, left to right. So think about staying as tall as you can with this one, like a tree swaying in the wind. Your foundation from your feet all the way up to the hips, even through the ribs. A little movement there. But from the ribs through to the shoulders and fingertips, we take more movement. Awesome. Find stillness through center. Connect the palms the next time you breathe out. Exhale and lower the hands down to the center of the chest. Allow the shoulders to fall back, lifting the sternum towards your thumbs, and then release your hands down towards your sides. Good, lovely. Tuck the chin to the chest, roll your way all the way down into a very gentle forward fold. Say hello to your hamstrings. Allow the fingers to reach as far as you naturally and comfortably can. We're going to take that same sway, so walk the hands over to one side, they come alongside the feet, gently walk them through center and to the other side. And you can build a little bit of momentum here. Maybe the movement becomes a little bit bigger, you're peeking around towards the back of the mat. Still feeling the foundation through the feet, that grounding as you start to wake up the side of the body and the hips and the hamstrings all at once. Even it out, so you've done the same number left to right. Come back to your center line. Maybe the fingertips are able to reach a little bit lower in your forward fold. Still feeling the firmness in the front of the thighs, so you're not pushing back on your knee joint, but enjoying the stretch through your hamstring. And the next time we breathe in, we're going to lift to a half forward fold. So the back is flat. Draw the shoulder blades onto your back. Draw the lower ribs in. Feel the belly button. Squeeze them tight. Crown of the head extending. And the tailbone is long and behind you. And then slide the hands up a little further. Maybe they reach midway through the thighs or they sit within the hips. So we're going to use this bent elbow position. Draw the elbows back and high. As you let your belly drop, take a look forward, broaden the collarbone. And then on the out breath, tuck the chin to the chest. Straighten the arms so you're pushing away from the thighs, not the knees, the thighs, lifting the back towards the ceiling. Good. Breathe in, allow the belly to drop. Bend the elbows, draw them behind you like little grasshopper legs. And breathe out, chin to chest, round the back. Feel the stretch through the back of the body. One more time, breathe in, chest lifts, allow the back to arch as the belly lowers, head rises, and tuck the chin to the chest. Push away, round the back. Good, nice. Gently coming down towards your forward fold again, hanging loose, look between the knees, nod and shake the head, loop the shoulders forwards and backwards, letting the arms hang heavy. And then we're going to plant the hands on the ground, either side of the feet. Let the knees bend if you need to. Good. Take a big step back with the right leg. Follow it with the left and you'll find yourself in plank. Nice. From your plank, your shoulders should be directly above your wrists. Pushing the ground away, take a little tuck of the elbow. So the elbow crease is pointing forwards as opposed to pointing towards the midline. The bend of the elbow is pointing towards the back edge of the mat. At the same time, you're pushing into the heels, but your hips are lifted high, trying to tuck your hips towards your ribs. Good. Now let the hips come higher. Start to push the ground forward ahead of you. Heels sink back, and we find ourselves in downward facing dog. Taking a walk here, bend and extend each leg. Looking for a little bit more length and space from the back of the hip, down the thigh, back of the knee, and into the lower leg. You can bend one leg at a time or both together if that works for you. So coming into a bit of a crouch position. And then as we settle in our downward facing dog, we aim to lower the heels, but it's okay if they don't touch. And we aim to straighten the legs, but it's okay if they need a little bit of a bend. The hips are high, lower ribs wrapped in. Tuck the elbows again, so crease of the elbows drawing towards your midline. You might feel a little stretch through the upper back as you do this. Now we're going to do a little sequence of plank work. So we're going to repeat rolling from downward facing dog into plank and adjusting the position of the right knee. So a little bit of core strength. So first time as we roll to plank, let the knee come in between your elbows, tuck your chin and see if you can get your nose to your knee. Notice to do that, the body has to lift up high and you're strong through your shoulders. Come back to your downward facing dog. Give the shoulders a little bit of a stretch. And this time the right knee is going to come towards your tricep. So the knee is a little higher, a little wider, rolling towards your plank. Take the time. You might even be able to get the knee onto the arm to pause here for a second. Good. Come back to your downward facing dog. Push the ground away. This time the right knee is going to come towards the right wrist. So a little lower. Maybe the knee is parallel with the ground. You might find you have to really push onto your left toes to get the knee forward. Good. Back to downward facing dog. Just one more time. This is a little bit different. The knee is going to come wide as the right foot finds your left leg. So slide it up, find a height that feels good for you. Gently lower the hips down towards the ground. You can bend the elbows as you go, and then release your toe. So we've got the right knee wide, the foot on the left thigh. That's it, good. And then a little bit of a back bend simultaneously. We're then going to breathe out, slowly soften the elbows down towards the ground. Maybe you feel the stretch through the hip. Breathe in and lift back up again. Good. Coming into lizard pose, tuck your left toes, push the ground away, firm up, or come through plank, and then step the right foot to the outside of your right hand. Good. Yes, lovely. So you can do this with your left leg straight or bent. We're going to take a little rock forwards and backwards as we open up the hip. You can stay with your arms straight or aim to walk them down towards the ground to deepen the stretch through the back of the right hip. Maybe you feel it in your left hip flexor too. Keep the body long and flat. So if you're on bent arms, come back to straight. Keep the back toe tucked. And now we're going to lift up again and come to pigeon. So as we lift up, we'll scoop the right leg underneath us, right knee to right wrist, right ankle just ahead of the left hip, and gently allow the back leg to lower down towards the ground. Good, well done. A couple of variations for you here. You can stay up tall, shoulders forward, hips forward, or if you wish, work your way gently down, allowing the elbows and forearms to meet the ground, if that feels good for you. With a big breath, we'll draw the collarbone forward. With the out breath, we'll soften down. Good, lovely. Gently rise yourself back up as you breathe in. Bring your hands underneath your shoulder line, spread your fingertips wide. Tucking your left toe, straightening the left leg to lift. Send your right leg back to plank. That's it. The heels are low, the tailbone is tucked, the ground is being pushed away by your strong arms, and then we'll lift the hips up and back into downward facing dog again. Taking a little walk, bend and extend each leg, stretch out the back of the thighs. Then when you settle, feet are again hip distance apart, legs straight or straight-ish, long straight arms ahead of you, tucking the elbows, so you bring the elbow crease towards your midline. Okay, same little series of plank with the left knee. So the first time the knee comes in between your elbows, we roll forward to plank. Try to get your nose to touch your knee. Notice how the back of the body spreads wide as you push your ground away, abdominal muscles strong. Step back to downward facing dog. Push the ground away, get a little stretch through your shoulders. Now next time the left knee to the tricep. So as we ripple forwards, the knee comes a little wider. Maybe you can make the connection on the arm. See if you can lift the left foot. Good, keep breathing. And send it back to downward facing dog. Well done. This time left knee to left wrist, so it's a little lower. Shin parallel with the ground. You might need to come further forward on your right toes to be able to get a connection. Good, still strong through the midsection. Step back, downward facing dog. And the last time, the left foot is going to find your right thigh with the left knee wide. So as you ripple to plank, like tree pose, a little bit of preparation, gently slide the hips down, release your right toes, take a little back bend as you draw your shoulders back, gently bend the elbows lower down towards the mat. See how the change in the back position maybe brings a bit more stretch into the hips. Breathe in and lift back up again. Good. Come into a comfortable straight arm position. Right toes tuck, right leg straightens, lift the body, and step your left foot forward outside of your left hand for lizard lunge. Good. So, with or without movement, you can rock forwards and backwards as the hips warm up. You can do this with your legs straight or with the back knee on the ground, depending on what's comfortable for you. Arms straight, or the arms start to lower, bending them, opening up the hips a little bit more. Remember, you can take the movement if that feels good. Trying not to dive the chest down, but keeping it long, extending through the body. If you're on bent arms, come back up to straight. That's it, ground away, nice. And then as we push the ground away, we're going to make our way to pigeon. So scoop the left foot underneath you, left knee to left wrist, left ankle just in front of the right hip. Inch your right leg back, release the toes, and we can start upright. So shoulders forward, hips forward, yummy stretch through the hip. And if you wish, you can breathe out and slowly walk your hands forward, lowering down, taking this time off the wrist to give them a little break too. The body as long as you breathe in, and softer and lower as you breathe out. Good, nice. Gently rise yourself back up on your in-breath, planting the hands with wide fingers underneath your shoulders, tucking your right toes, straightening the right leg, scooping the left leg up and underneath you, and then into plank. Beautiful. Push up and back, downward facing dog. Nice. So we're going to take a couple of ripples here. Breathing in, come onto your toes, lift your hips high, not quite to plank, but the shoulders will rise forward a little. And on the out breath, with the shoulders drawing back and down, the heels lower, the hips lower, and you sink further into your downward facing dog. Let's go again, breathing in, lift the heels, lift the hips, little ripple forward. And on the out breath, sink it all back down. Nice, well done. All right, right leg this time, sweep it up behind you, long and strong, three-legged dog, lifting your toes towards the ceiling. Then right knee to chest, knee to nose, lift up as you ripple forwards for your plank, and then step your right leg forward between your hands, so your right knee comes to rest over the ankle. Good. Take a moment to dial your left hip down, so that your hips are square, shoulders are square. Breathing in, fingertips lift for high lunge. So again, just a quick check-in with the left hip. Has it started to swing open, or is it still drawing forward? Right heel pulling towards you. The fingertips are high, the chest is above your shoulders, and you've got your belly button drawn in and up, so you're not sinking into the lower back. Lovely. We're going to take a couple of drills here. So the next time you breathe in, reach your fingertips higher, straighten your front leg, and on the out breath, with the front leg or back leg as well, bend and sink a little lower. Good. Breathe in, reach up, take up space, breathe out, sink down. One more time. Breathe in as you reach. Feel the body elevate and out, sink back down. Good, well done. Straighten your back leg again for that lovely squared up high lunge. Feel the glutes engage, strong through the middle. And on the out breath, you're going to reach forward and down. Bring the hands to the mat. Awesome. Once the palms are in the ground, step back for plank. Let's bring it down towards the knees. Release the toes. Elbows squeeze tight to the body as you bend them. Breathe out and lower all the way down. Point the toes. You've got long straight legs. Curl up for baby cobra or full cobra if the back is warm enough. And then breathe out, soften it down. Toes tuck, knees bend, we come through tabletop, lift the hips, and downward facing dog. Take a breath here to sink back and land into the pose before we repeat that with the left leg. So the left leg lifts long and strong, three-legged dog, toes up towards the ceiling, left knee to chest, tucking the chin, looking towards the knee, lift the body high, and step your left foot between your hands, allowing the hips to sink down. Good, dial down the right hips so that they're lovely and square. We're taking a look forward as we breathe in, fingertips lift, high lunge. So we land in the pose, inhale to lift, exhale to land. Shoulders forward, hips forward, fingertips up high, and we're going to do that same little drill. So breathing in to lift, front leg straightens. Breathing out, front and back leg is an option. Bends, down we go. Breathe in to lift. Reaching the fingertips up towards the sky. Feel the right glute engage. Exhale and sink it down. One more, a little taller. Good, and then sink it back down. Firm up the back leg, straighten and push the heel behind you. So the same thing here, we're going to take a lovely big reach in. On the out breath, reach forward. And then let the hands lower towards the mat. Good, palms on the ground. Push the ground away, step back, plank. Lower it down to the knees again, nice and soft, land gently. Release the toes, elbows tuck, exhale, down we go. Try and get the hips and the shoulders to ground at the same time. Long legs behind you, hands just underneath the chest. Breathe in to curl up, cobra or baby cobra. Still squeezing the elbows tight towards your body. Exhale, release it down. Good, nice. Toes tuck, knees bent, arms straighten, and then lift the hips back up. Downward facing dog. Well done, lovely. Couple of breaths here, so time enough to grab a quick sip of water if you need. Remember the breaths that we did at the beginning with movement, you can do that too. So inhale, maybe you lift. Exhale, maybe you lower. One more big breath. When you're ready, we'll meet back down in downward facing dog. Lovely. Okay, so we're going to miss out the high lunge drills this time, but add in warrior two. So begin with the right leg lifts up and back. This time, keeping the left heel grounded, bend your right knee, but keep the right knee pointing towards the ground and your right toes lifting towards the ceiling. So it's a bit like a scorpion's tail. Should feel quite a nice stretch through the left hamstring. Right knee still bent, squeeze it in towards your nose, ripple forwards to plank. And when you're ready, step your right foot through. Take a moment to allow the hips to sink down, create a long line with your body. Inhale as the fingertips rise up for high lunge. And on the out breath, we'll let the back heel come to the floor and the arms open out long and wide for warrior two. Good, nice. So check, we should have our shoulders over our hips. There's often a little tendency to lean forward to this one. So if anything, it feels like you're reaching your left little fingers down over the outside of the toes. Pinkies even pulling back to allow the collarbone to rise, still squeezing in through the midsection, tailbone drawing down towards the ground. And you can be as generous with the front knee bend as you need to. So if you need to be a little bit gentler, your warrior two might be a bit higher. If you're feeling strong today, sink it forward so that the knee is over your ankle. Good, lovely. And we finish this by looking over our right hand. So we've just got a turn of the head, looking over the right fingertips, still keeping the shoulders over the hips. Take a big breath in to stretch through your fingers. And on the out breath, we'll turn the chest and shoulders towards the front of the mat as you cartwheel your hands down. Landing them either side of your right foot, spiral on the back toes. With the ground being pushed away, you'll step back to plank. Choice this time to stay on your toes if you wish. Exhale, we'll lower down all the way to the ground. Nice and slow, nice and gentle, control it, use your triceps. Release the toes when you get to the bottom. Breathe in and lift. Think about a curling up off the floor action. So maybe the hips, definitely thighs, legs on the ground while the upper body lifts. Breathing out, we'll curl it back down, gentle and controlled. Tucking the toes, and this time we're going to push the ground away, lifting up to plank, up, and then the hips, up and back, downward facing dog. Well done. Okay, left side. The toes lift up high with a straight leg initially. Left knee is going to bend, but the knee is going to point towards the ground as the toes lift up high for the scorpion's tail. Enjoy the stretch through the right hamstring. Left knee then squeezes in towards your chest. Ripple forwards to plank, knee to nose, and step through when you're ready. Take a moment to allow the hips to sink down as the shoulders reach forward. Breathe in and lift. High lunge, take it up. On the out breath, the back heel lowers. We open up with a 90-degree turn to the right, extending your arms long. Shoulders again over hips. Watch out for that cheeky lean forward. Being generous with the front knee if it feels good for today's practice. Drawing the fingertips back, lifting through the chest, squeezing in through the midline, allowing the tailbone to lower down towards the mat. Long arms extending left and right, and finish it off by taking that gaze over your left fingertips. Shoulders still relaxed, still breathing. Play with the bend in the front knee, see what feels good for you. Breathing in to extend your fingers. And breathing out to cartwheel down, squaring your hips and shoulders as you go. Spiral on your back toes. Good. Once you've found your balance through your hands, push back to plank. Knees or toes, make your way down towards the ground, landing as lightly as you can. Release the toes, curl up for your back bend as you inhale. Don't forget about the legs, keep them engaged. Think about tucking your tailbone, squeezing the glutes, and breathe out. Slowly down. Well done. Toes tuck, squeezing the elbows tight towards the body, extend your arms and lift for plank. Good. Hips high, push the ground away, settle in your downward facing dog. Chance again for a little water break if you need it, as we pause here for a couple of breaths. So either holding it still, maybe you take a rest in child's pose, maybe you use the breath to bring some movement. Good. One more breath. Beautiful. All right, so we meet back in our downward facing dog. All right, one more cycle with the right leg, lifting it up and back. And this time the knee bend is going to bring the heel towards your hips. So this time the knee can come a little wider, opening up the hips as you go, but the shoulders stay square. So look to your left pinky toe underneath your right armpit and just keep that arm lifted. Right knee then squeezes in towards your chest. As you roll your body forwards to plank, take a big step through your hands. Help the foot along if you need to. Allow the hips to lower. Good. Breathe in and lift. Up we go. High lunge. On the exhale, open up for warrior two. Draw the little fingers back and behind you. Nice. Well done. Right knee stays bent. Now see if you can keep as much of this knee bend as possible. We're going to reverse the warrior by taking a big lift up through the right hand, lower down with the left. Allow the shoulders to start to lean over your left leg. So we've got a lovely foundation, right foot, right knee, all stays into position. We create this arched effect from the right hip, up through the ribs, into the shoulders, elbow and fingers. Now the left hand can find your hip, maybe your thigh, maybe your lower leg, but the right elbow is drawing back, allowing you to lift the chest. Maybe you look up if that feels comfortable. Still breathing. Awesome. Keep the knee in that same position as we return to warrior two, using your midsection to lift your body up. Arms long, shoulders relaxed. Continue your out breath and cartwheel down towards the mat. Good. Spiral on the back toes again. Pushing ground away. Step back for plank. Knees or toes as we lower down, with the option this time to take a little chaturanga. Pause where your elbows meet your ribs. 90-degree bend. Then flip the toes, pushing the ground away for upward facing dog. If you prefer, land your hips on the ground for cobra. And then when you're ready from upward facing dog, you're going to lift straight up, hips high, or from cobra, come through the reverse plank and into downward facing dog. Beautiful. All right, left side, lifting the leg up behind you, taking a moment to bend the knee, bringing the heel towards your hips. Left knee lifts high, the hips can open. Take a look beyond your right pinky toes, underneath your right armpit. Keep that arm lifted to square your shoulders. And then bring the knee to the chest. Taking a big step forward when you're ready, or helping it along. And then breathe in to lift for high lunge. On the out breath, the back heel comes down, arms long and horizontal, warrior two. And then seeing if we can keep this left knee bend as much as possible as we look to reverse the warrior. The right hand lowers, the left hand lifts up and over, taking the shoulders over your right leg, left knee still bent. The right hand can land on the hip, the thigh, the lower leg, just depending on the extent of the side body stretch that you have. You got the foundation from the left foot into the knee, strong through the thigh, and then the lovely curve from the hip through the ribs, into the shoulder, up and over, elbow and fingertips. So you can take a look up at the sky if that feels good. Left elbow pulls behind you to give a lovely lift through the chest. Still breathing. Using the strength in your body, lift back up to warrior two. Arms horizontal, stretch through the fingers, pause for a breath, and then cartwheel it down towards the mat. Spiraling on the back toes, landing your hands, step it back, plank. Knees or toes to make your way down to the ground, with the option to pause in chaturanga where your elbows meet your ribs. Push the ground away and lift for a back bend of your choice. from upward facing dog, we're going to pike the hips up, straight into downward facing dog, or from cobra, lower down for a moment before you push up, reverse plank, and then downward facing dog. Good, well done. Let's take a bend in the knees, sink them down, big toes to touch, knees wide, reach forward, lower the chest, and breathe. Wow, first child's pose of the day, we're nearly half an hour in. With a couple of deep breaths, take the pressure off the wrists. You can lower your forehead or chin towards the mat, soften the shoulders, maybe you give them a little wriggle, maybe the hips take a little bit of movement. Just a moment to check in. Not long, we've got a bit more work to do. All right, ripple yourself up here, take a big roll through the shoulders, push the ground away, tucking the chin towards the chest. Bring your knees underneath your hips, tuck the toes, lift the hips up. We're going to take a little walk towards the hands and meet in forward fold. So have your feet either hip distance apart or maybe a little bit closer. We're going to take that little walk side to side. So swing and sway the arms, tucking the chin, looking down towards your knees as you bring a little bit more movement back through the hips. And maybe you can walk the hands around a little bit further now that the hips are lovely and warm. There's some good stretches coming their way too. All right, even it out so that you do an equal number left and right. And then we'll pause here in the middle in forward fold. Halfway lift as you inhale, loop the shoulders back, long flat back position, draw the lower ribs in. And then we breathe out all the way down to the ground again. Soften the hands, looking between the knees. And then we're going to roll all the way up to standing, coming back to our mountain pose. So take your time. The legs can gradually become fully straight. When you stand up, loop the shoulders back, turn your palms forward, elbows and little pinky close to your thighs. Okay, I'm going to take a sideward step so I can face you for tree pose. So mountain pose, we found the foundation right at the very beginning. We took up space with the feet. Take the attention to your left foot first. Maybe you take a moment to curl the toes up, place them back down, take up as much space as you can. Soften the left knee to help with balance. Take your right knee wide and start to turn the sole of the foot in towards your ankle. Good. You can have the hands on the hips, down by the sides, or in the center of the chest, whatever helps. Find something to look at for a point of focus and gradually start to lift your right knee. Now we're going to work on a strength variation first. So I want really light pressure, foot to leg, but use the strength in your hip. So sometimes, and I do this, I tend to put a lot of pressure in the foot to the thigh, and it almost carries the weight of the leg a little bit. But I want you to put really light pressure, foot to thigh, so that you're holding, almost maybe you could give it inch space, holding the strength of this pose. You'll feel it around the hips, around the front and back, into the glutes as you stand nice and tall. So this is a strength variation. For flexibility, you can take a reach down, assist lifting the foot a little higher. Now add a little bit of pressure, foot to thigh, and let the knee come a little wider. So now we're stretching right inner thigh here and into the hip. Good. Still finding that point of focus. Some further options for your arms, whether you're working on the strength or the flexibility option, is maybe to take the hands wide and into cactus arms, like tree branches, or you can extend them either on the diagonal or up and overhead. Keep breathing, find your point of focus, feel your left ankle react to the change in body weight. Gently reset your hands, bring them lower. Release your foot, step it down towards the mat, walk it out, well done. So check in with wherever you are feeling tension. Maybe there's a little bit around the hip. For me, I feel it on the standing leg because I'm on carpet, so it's working a little bit harder. So wherever you need to take a little bit of movement or show a little bit of love, do that. And then we'll swap the legs around. So this time it's the right foot as your foundation. Lift the toes, spread them wide, take a little bit of softness into the right knee. Think about finding your foundation. Remember the options of the arms here by your sides, on your hips, or in the heart center. So when you're ready, start to dial the left knee out, turning the sole of the foot towards the right inside leg, And with the strength variation, slowly use the muscles around the hips to lift your left knee. Keeping it as wide as is comfortable. Watch out for the hips changing position. Maybe you create a little bit of space between the foot and the thigh. So feel the strength here. Now the legs are heavy, and I mean that politely. The legs are strong, that's why they're heavy. The thigh bone is the biggest bone within the body. So the muscles around the hips having to work. If you're looking for the flexibility option, you can assist the lift, reach down, grab the ankle, place the foot on the inner thigh, let the knee come a little wider. So now we've got a stretch going on too. Same options for your hands. You can keep them where they were to start with, or bring the arms wide like tree branches on the diagonal, lifting, or maybe together, testing your balance a little further. Balance poses are so good for focus. All your attention has to tune inwards. And of course, if you have to fall out of it, that's okay. That's the fun about it. Don't take it too seriously. I'm often like, this tree is swaying in the wind. Oh, it's about to get blown over. All right, just take another breath wherever you are. Slowly start to lower the hands. And when you're ready, gently lower your left leg. If you manage to get it to a point where it's stuck, it can be quite tricky to wriggle it out. Good. Step it down, shake it out wherever you're finding tension. Take a little bit of movement. So again, maybe it's your standing leg, maybe it's the lifted leg. And then we're going to walk a little wider. So if you want to turn lengthways along your mat, take up as much space as you comfortably can with your legs. So we're going to create a triangle shape between your legs and the floor. And then just walk the heels in a little bit and the toes out on an angle. Good. Hands to the center of the chest. Push your sternum into your thumbs. Begin to sink the knees a little wider as the hips come down for goddess pose. Good. So time for a little bit of strength work. And you're going to feel this in the thighs. So let's get the shoulders over the hips rather than the temptation to lean the shoulders forward. Tailbone still draws down towards the ground. Knees are pressing out as much as is comfortable for you. So this is similar to your yogi squat, which we're going to do in a moment, but the knees are over your ankles as opposed to the ankles being underneath your body. Good, keep breathing. Maybe you start to feel a little bit trembling in the thighs, that's okay. We're going to bring the legs straight as we breathe in, lift up. Bring your feet parallel, so send the ankles out a little bit, the toes forward, and then reach it forward, bending at the hips, gently lowering into a wide-legged forward fold. I'm going to stay here for a moment. So initially we'll find a flat back position with a little tuck of the chin. The nose is going to be pointing down towards the ground. The lower ribs and belly button are drawn in, so we're not arching the back. Tailbone behind you. And if it's available, start to bend your elbows. Maybe your elbows and or forearms find the ground. You can walk the feet a little bit wider if that feels comfortable. Maybe over time, you can start to look down between the knees, possibly even the crown of the head, finding the mat. At this stage, you can bring the hands a little wider, bending the elbows just to add support so you don't feel as if you're going to topple over in each direction. Or you have the options to extend your arms and wrap your hands around your ankles, or just variations of the pose so you can find what feels good within your own body. It's a really yummy hamstring stretch, creating a bit more space at the hips as we breathe, using the weight of our own body to facilitate the stretch. On your next inhale, let's rise back up to a flat back position so you can use the hand on the ground to lift the body, sending the hips back, lower ribs draw in, crown of the head forward, and then walk your feet, bending them as the knees as you go, so that you bring your heels underneath your hips, toes turn out, sink the hips back and down. Oh yeah. Elbows between the knees, lift in the chest to find your yogi squat. Good, nice. Now in an ideal world, the shoulders would be above the hips, but this is a little bit strong for many people. So give it a little wriggle, see if you can find a position which feels good for you. But instead of being able to rest in the pose, which some people can comfortably do, we're going to think about lifting up and out of it. So elbows are pressing towards the knees are pressing towards the elbows. You'll feel legs and thighs engaged. With the tailbone drawing down towards the ground, the glutes are going to be working, the midsection is working. And using the elbow on the knee, you should feel the mid-back fire up, chest is lifted, crown of the head high, still breathing. Just a couple more breaths here. Nice, well done. All right, lightly bring the hands to the mat. Now you might need to turn 90 degrees, wriggle yourself around and come to sit. Beautiful, awesome. Nice little pit stop for a water break if you need it. I'm going to sit up nice and tall. Good. And now take a really slow roll down as we prepare for bridge pose. So keep your heels reasonably close towards your hips. The knees are going to be bent. You can extend your arms, or maybe you hold the knees if you need a bit more support. The body is as tall as you can possibly keep it as you gradually roll down over the hips. Take your time. From the lower back to the mid back is a little bit more challenging. Keeping the gaze between the knees, the chin can tuck towards the chest ever so slightly. Feel the abdominal muscles work. And once your ribs start to come to the ground, it's a little easier to lower. Relax, shoulders down, head down, arms down. Give the knees a little windscreen wide left to right as you walk your heels closer to your hips. Ideally to a point where you can touch them with the back of your fingertips. All right, so the knees are pointed up towards the ceiling. Feet are hip distance apart, maybe a touch wider, but the toes are towards the front edge of your mat. Take a moment to squash your lower back underneath your, squash your lower back into the mat and see if you can slide your fingers underneath your back. You shouldn't be able to, you should be squashing the lower back on towards the mat. So that way you'll feel like your belly button is pulling in towards your spine. We're going to have our hands now either side of the hips, palms down. Take a little tuck of the tailbone to lift your hips. Feel the glutes engage, push into your heels. Feel the hamstrings engage, keep lifting the hips, up, 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 up. Give the shoulders a little wriggle so that they're supported underneath your body. Fingertips still extending along the mat as we find our bridge pose. Checking that the toes are still facing forward. There may be a temptation for the toes to turn out. Knees then tracking over your ankles as opposed to drifting out as well. But you will notice actually, if you want to play with this, if the knees go out, see how it allows you to lift the hips a little wider. And as you bring the knees back in together, the hips might sink a little lower. So that's just interesting. That's the bone structure of the thigh bone within the hip socket. And that's why the wide-legged forward fold often allows you to come a little bit lower than a standard forward fold. All right, so the point of the hips, we're aiming to get them as the highest point. It will be the knees, but see if you can imagine that the hip bones are highest. And then we're going to lift the chest up high, tucking it in towards the chest, chin to chest. And then lift the chin up towards the ceiling. So we've got a lovely rounding of the back, tucking the tailbone so your abdominal muscles are engaged. You might feel a little heat through the glutes now, that's okay. And then gently wriggle the shoulders out, slowly lower upper back, mid back, eventually across the lower back and hips. Bring the knees up in towards your chest. You can hold onto the knees, lifting your eyes up towards your knees. And then as you lower down, take a gentle rock side to side. And then make that forward and backwards. And we'll bring ourselves up to sitting. Good. This is where if you want to grab some cushions, they might be quite useful. And we're going to finish, seated. So double pigeon is our final pose. Now, if you've not done this before, you're going to wriggle your first leg, and it doesn't matter, we'll swap them around. Your first leg so that the shin is parallel to the front edge of your mat. You'll have a triangle shape between your lower leg, your thigh, and the other thigh. You're then, with care, going to lift the opposite ankle over the top of the knee so that your shin bones are stacked one on top of each other. And this is where the cushions are super useful, because for a lot of people, myself included, the hips are tight and this knee wants to lift. So you're just going to find a little bit of time using your arms to give your legs a little bit of support just in case this pose doesn't come naturally. Aiming to have both sit bones grounded firmly, But you might notice the leg that's on top, you start to lean the opposite way. So if you just need a little wriggle to find comfort, this is one of those poses that when you reach it, the longer you rest, the more the muscles start to just become a little bit more compliant and relaxed. And we're going to pause. Now, if this is really unavailable, it might be easier to have the hands behind you just to take a little lean back. That gives the hips a bit more space. Or if you're looking for a more advanced variation, you may be comfortable leaning over the legs. So taking the shoulder points over the two knee points. Again, you've got the option with that cushion if you need it. So I invite you here to close your eyes as we begin to reach the relaxation. We're using this first leg just to guide us into finding a position which feels comfortable. I'll use that word lightly. Manageable might be more realistic. Just breathing, checking in with those sensations. You can close the eyes, allow the shoulders to fall back and down. And when you're ready, we need to think about swapping the legs. So if you're using a cushion for support, just gently slide it out, guide your top leg out of its position, unravel the bottom leg, and position what is now your bottom leg so that the shin is parallel with the front edge of the mat. With support, guide the opposite ankle over the knee. And sometimes it's just a little wriggle, it comes naturally, the foot kind of wants to do its own little thing. With or without a cushion, if you need that for support, find your sit bones, sit, or you can create like a little hammock with your arms so that maybe they hold the leg if it wants to shoot off into position. Let the knee find its own natural height. With time, it might lower down, it might soften. And remembering the options that you've got here, you can take a little lean back, lifting the chest, giving the hips just a little bit more room to figure out what they need. Or if you prefer, a little lean forward, taking your time as the muscles relax. So as you close your eyes here in this final relaxation, I'll leave you with some words by an artist called Joanne Raptis. Now you'll notice we did a few tree pose variations and I took the inspiration from this reading for those poses. And Joanne advises that we should be more like a tree, stay grounded, connect with your roots, turn over a new leaf, bend before you break, enjoy your unique and natural beauty, and keep growing. All right, gently ease yourself out of this. If you've used a cushion, move it out of the way. Guide your top leg out of its position. Unravel your bottom leg and now find any comfortable seated pose that works for you. Maybe you just need to bring a little bit of movement in towards the legs. So I'm going to extend my legs because I've got room to be able to do that. Take a big sit up, nice and tall, hands together in the center of the chest. A big breath in, and then a breath out with a lean forward. I'll say a very big thank you from me to you for trusting me. I know some of those poses were a little bit different, maybe a little bit challenging, but give yourself a big thank you as well. Have a wonderful day ahead of you. Namaste.